Welcome to How Do They Afford That, the podcast that peeks into the financial lives of everyday Australians. I'm Michael Thompson. I'm a writer and the co-host of the Fear and Greed Business Podcast. And as always, I'm with Canna Campbell, financial planner, founder of Sugar Mama TV, which is the financial literacy platform covering podcasts, YouTube and books and Instagram and pretty much everywhere. Canna, I have a question for you, and I have been kind of dying to ask this one. I was going to ask last week, but I thought I'll give you a little bit more time to kind of settle in. Hello, by the way.
Hi.
A few weeks ago, we talked about the fact that you have a new member of your household, an au pair.
Right. An au pair, because the cost of childcare is so painful and getting a babysitter is expensive.
Have you had any disaster stories? Has anything, I'm not hoping that anything has gone wrong because that would be really malicious of me. But it feels like this is very kind of fertile ground for entertaining stories.
Well, the au pair is going great.
Oh, okay. So I just,
really great. There's actually a secondary
didn't mean to
benefit.
sound so disappointed there, but I'm pleased.
If you want to hear a scandalous story, a friend of mine got an au pair and discovered that they were running swingers parties when they were away on the weekend. So there's your scandalous disaster story.
That is fantastic.
It's hilarious. So, but no, this au pair is going great, and it is actually incredibly budget friendly when you think about the cost of getting a babysitter. And also it's really hard at the moment to find a babysitter, particularly one that you know and trust. So it's going great. And she's really there to help me with the 3 kids so we can sort of tag team, so she can maybe clean up the mess from dinner while I bath the kids or vice versa. But I've discovered a secondary benefit to having an au pair. No, it does not involve swingers.
Well, you kind of led us into that.
You wanted a disaster story, so I had to. It would be cool not to share it because that's a pretty scandalous story.
Please share the secondary benefit of having an au pair.
Well, Tom and I are living vicariously through our au pair. So she helps us out. We've agreed 20 hours per week. So the other hours of the day, she's out living her best life. And the other day she went kayaking around the harbour.
Very nice.
Oh, wow, how great is that? She's like, oh, it was beautiful. We saw the houses on the water. I'm like, oh, wow. Then the next day she was out to lunch with her friends, having a fabulous time. The next day she was off to a bottomless mimosa brunch. I didn't even know those things existed.
And then coming back to look after the kids?
That was a full day and night off. So she was,
just thought I'd check.
Yeah, no. Responsible parenting 101 in our house. But Tom like, oh, wow. And then she's off to all these new bars and these new restaurants. And Tom like, oh, wow, we didn't know about that place or this place. So we're actually living vicariously through her. So it's great.
Does it make you feel old? Yes.
Old.
Yeah.
I am there telling myself, I'm really just, I'm still 21, 22. I've still got it. And then I have a 20-minute conversation. I'm like, I'm really old and tired. I think I might go to bed now.
Yeah, don't you feel really young until you speak to someone who actually is young, and then you realize you're like,
I'm
no,
old.
Yeah, there's a lifetime of difference between you and I.
Yes. But she's living a fabulous life, and it's fun to hear about all the things she's doing.
She's doing a lot of fun things. Have you gone through her budget yet with her and asked her how she's affording all of this?
She's actually a really smart girl with money. She bought her first house with her ex-partner at the tender age of 21.
Oh, that's impressive.
Really impressive.
Was that on the interview that you did with her before she started? You tested her on her kind of financial smarts?
Michael, believe it or not, I when I'm off working mode, it's the last thing I talk about is money.
You know what? I don't believe you, because you have told us in the past that you and Tom sit up in bed at night with your spreadsheets and chat about your budgets. I know that I'm kind of probably exaggerating it in my head a little bit, but I kind of picture that every night you're kind of sitting there propped up against the bed head, probably with iPads or a laptop, and you're going, how about this expense today? Ooh,
but
yeah.
Michael, you're forgetting, because I did all the groundwork with our budget. When we do review our budgets together, it's literally a 5, maybe 10-minute conversation, and then the laptops get put away.
But it is happening every night in bed.
Not every night, no. Oh, my goodness. Because we do our budgets, we have complete transparency, and our budgets work for us. So, yes, we check in, but it's a quick, easy, fun conversation.
I'm going to keep imagining that it is happening every night because it amuses me to think of that. All right. Now, as you're listening today, we've got a really important topic to talk about, which is all about kind of financial resilience. And it kind of links back to an episode we did a couple of weeks ago. But as you're listening to what we are discussing, please know that everything that we're talking about is always general in nature and never personal, investment, strategic, or product advice. It is purely for financial education purposes only.
That's right. If you ever hear something that we're talking about, whether it be a strategy, an idea, or simply a savings hack, please go and talk to a financial planner. Get them to look at your individual unique situation, your financial goals, your dreams, and your deadlines for all of those goals and dreams, and let them put together comprehensive, proactive, strategic advice based around your needs only.
Now, a couple of weeks ago, I think it was episode 17. These are the kinds of things that I should check before I say it, but I'm going to roll with it. Episode 17, it was on emergency money. It was about the need to have money set aside for emergency expenses. If you haven't heard that episode, go back and listen to it now.
It's really a good one.
Yeah, it is really it's really important because it just goes into the range of issues that can pop up, come out of absolutely nowhere, and how much money and how you kind of calculate how much money you need in order to give yourself that peace of mind that if something unexpected does happen, you're going to be able to cope with it financially. But it links perfectly to the topic of resilience because things do go wrong and you do take these massive financial hits, and generally they're not expected, and you need to be resilient. What has happened to you, Canna?
All right. So after we discussed emergency money and how to work out how much emergency money you really do need, I walked away and I felt really torn because you said to me, Canna, is that realistic? I mean, we can't come up with that much money as emergency money. And I felt really bad because
we're talking about tens of thousands of dollars.
I think I used an example where, I said, for example, 50,000 for you. And you said, no, it might be, say, 35. And I felt really bad because I was like, oh gosh, am I being unrealistic? Am I setting the benchmark too high? And are people then going to think, oh, that's too hard to even bother having emergency money? And then I thought, no, I've got to be honest. I've got to be truthful with you. I can't sugarcoat. I am of no value if I'm downplaying what you really need.
Yeah.
However, I should have pointed out, yes, you may work out that you really do need 50,000, but you can only get to 35,000. You should still get to that 35,000, but what you might do and sort of take on board is go, all right, I probably do need $50,000, but we're only in a position where we can get to $35,000 emergency money. But the moment I can, I will keep topping up that account slowly and steadily, whether it be $1,000 once every couple of months or $500 once every couple of months. I will slowly and steadily have a goal when I can to build up to $50,000. So I should have said that.
That does make sense. And I think the thing that just surprised me in that episode was just how much money you do need to have set aside to give yourself that peace of mind. And the thing that I found almost unrealistic was going, not that much can happen that's going to cost $10,000 or $15,000. And it feels like, we talk about manifesting and things, it feels like it's almost tempting fate, me saying nothing can come along that's going to cost that much money. And then things do.
Things do. And even you might have the list and look at, okay, well, I've got an elderly parent overseas. I may have to suddenly jump on a flight that will cost me $10,000 with spending money and accommodation. And I've got, this much annual leave and I've got these insurance policies with these excesses. You might do that number, but then something completely knocks you for six that was not on your list that you could not even possibly imagine happen. So guess what happened a couple of days after we recorded that podcast? The wheels fell off for me. I had 3 major emergencies happen pretty much one day after the other that wiped all of our emergency money out and some special separate savings that Tom has had for years and years and years before we even met.
No way.
Yeah. So you know what? I'm actually going to go back and firmly put my foot down and say, yes, you do need emergency money. Please don't downplay it. And these are things that need to be addressed and paid for quickly. They're not things that we can kind of park off and come back to later. These are things that must be addressed as a true, real emergency.
Okay, so it is to be seen as a priority.
Yeah.
And so you have talked previously that things seem to happen in threes.
Yes.
And then it's almost as though you put that out into the universe and then it came back to you. What was the first thing?
All right, so
if this isn't too traumatic to go through, I'm going to.
I want to be real and I want to be truthful. I want to be honest, and I'm happy to use myself as an example to make people realize take this seriously.
Yep.
Because, and the emergency money is a blessing, but I'll come to that in a second. All right, so I have 2 Labradors, a chocolate one called Giuseppe and a red Labrador called Peppy. Giuseppe and Peppy.
Does that ever get confusing?
No, but if I call their names, because they sound so similar, they both come running.
It's convenient.
They're Italian. They're lovers. So Giuseppe is a 10-year-old chocolate Labrador. He is my king. I've had him before I had Tom. So he is my number one favorite family member.
Yep.
And he has pet insurance. And you know this is how much I'm obsessed, just to give you a bit of a crazy insight to my world. You know, people dream about retiring and traveling around the world. And
oh God,
my dream is to have a house full of Labradors, one of every color. I know, that's how crazy I am about Giuseppe.
How many would that be?
That would be, well, there's a new color, a gray silver color. So technically you could go 4 to 5. Yeah. Crazy. That's this is Giuseppe is and anyone who follows me on Instagram knows how much I'm obsessed with Giuseppe and Peppy. But so Giuseppe had to have a tooth taken out. I knew about this. And I took him to the vet and they said, look, it's probably going to be around $1,400. Okay. Now, no problem. And they said, look, we may not need to have to take this tooth out, but just keep that in mind. That's what it's probably going to be. A couple of hours later, they call me back and they're like, okay, he's sedated. We've had a look in his mouth. His teeth are actually really, really bad. We're going to have to take a lot of teeth out. And they're going on and on. And I'm like, just tell me how much are we talking about? And she pauses and said, up to $8,000.
Oh, ouch.
Now.
That pause is never a good sign, is it? And you can tell they're delaying.
And she's like, what do you want me to do? I'm like, he's sedated. You have to do that. I mean, what are we going to do? He can't have rotting teeth. Anyway. So I know a lot of people listening go, hang on, Canna, you've got pet insurance. I do have pet insurance, but I also have $1,000 excess. But this is the other thing. Giuseppe's a 10-year-old Labrador. He's already had a couple of teeth taken out, and I may have hit my quota on dental claims for his insurance policy. I'm still waiting to hear back from my insurance company. So yes, I might get some money back, but I'm not going to get the full $8,000 back. Okay, so that comes out of our emergency money.
That is a big hit. Because I suppose you would have, though, had some money budgeted for, say, the excess.
Yes.
Because in your kind of annual budget, you would be planning maybe for one claim per year, for example, as a normal kind of expense.
If you've ever had a Labrador, they're renowned for eating the wrong dodgy things and getting sick. So especially our younger puppy, Labrador Peppy, she's quite the character. Ate a COVID test the other day. So I am a regular at the vet. So it's factored in both accounts, both our first everyday account and also the financial float life account. But anyway, that's a story for another day.
So I do have to ask though, because I think everyone is curious right now. Did the COVID test come back out? And was it positive when it emerged?
It wasn't, but I did insist on keeping a 1.5 meter social distance from me. The funny thing was when she ate Apple's Father's Day present, which was made of glittered, coloured Play-Doh, that came out in the same capacity it went in. So that
that is quite an image.
I know. Yeah, it was. Anyway, the second thing that then happened, so we got hit with Giuseppe. Second thing happened the next day. Tom is we've got a carport. He breaks the door, the cable, and the chain.
So what the kind of the garage?
And my car's in the garage. He's on the driveway. We can't open the garage. It's so heavy, and we're both pulling it. Even Rocco, my 9-year-old's like pulling the three of us, like, get this up. Tom, and I'm like, Tom, I've got to take the kids to school tomorrow. Like, it's going to cost hundreds in taxis. What are you doing? And anyway, $2,500 to get it fixed, but it gets worse. The guy's like, your garage door is so badly rusted and old, you actually need a whole new door as well as a motor as well as all these parts being fixed. Yeah.
Oh.
So $7,500.
$7,500. This is
Yeah.
Oh my
Yeah.
God. This is after $8,000 for canine dental work.
Well, I haven't actually paid the full $8,000 yet because Giuseppe's surgery ended up being so big and so long. They called me back and like, we're only able to do one half of his mouth. He's going to have to come back in 6 weeks to do the second half of his mouth.
Oh no.
I know, it does. And okay, this is the crescendo.
Well, because we know that that's 2 out of 3.
Yeah.
You've saved the big one for last.
Big one.
Go for it.
It's a really big one. So we have had water damage to our house, and I'm going to cut a really long story short. The insurance claim went in. They sat on it for 6 months. They sent tradesmen back and forth. It came to crunch time of getting all the scope done of what needs to be done to fix it, and they realized in the fine print it's not insurable.
No.
Yes. This is like eye-wateringly painful, and I spoke to some builders and got them over quickly to have a look, and they're like, no, this cannot be delayed. You have to get this fixed urgently because these problems are going to spread, and they're going to cause far more expensive problems than you're looking at right now. And no, we can't do a makeshift. We can't Band-Aid anything up, because if I Band-Aid anything up, it could last 1 month, it might last 2 years, but that's the upside. You really have to get this fixed to the point where it actually involves taking a huge like floor to ceiling window out of the house, ripping part of the house up, and so you can imagine the cost of like beams being replaced, windows coming out.
And
like
especially at the moment when
rebuilding.
anything to do with kind of building in the home is so expensive the moment, because you've got all the obvious the labour costs and everything, but even just the supplies that are needed for all of that, it's through the roof.
And the quote came in, and I called Tom, and he's like, what can we do in the meantime? He's like, and I called him back. He's like, I would not do this to my own house by just temporarily pushing to the side. This is actually quite urgent. And of course, you're talking about beams, and you're talking about potentially more black mold. And if anyone's had black mold, they know how much a nightmare it is. He's like, do this, and you don't need to worry about it for the rest of your life in living in this house. So all emergency money is going to the point where it's wiped, and we're going to have to use Tom's special savings that he's had set aside for, a rainy day. That's his personal private money. Done.
Wow.
Yeah. And those things were not on my list of things that we would need emergency money for.
That is extraordinary. That is just hit after hit after hit.
Yep.
3 in a row.
3 in a row, and literally day after day after day. So please don't be naive. Don't think you're invincible. Be intelligent, be smart, be real. This happens.
All right. So today we're really kind of using you as our live example, because
is that a nice break for you?
It actually is. I'm just like, okay, I can tuck away my 18 bank accounts and various other issues that I raise all the time, and now we get to focus on you. But I'd like to now kind of look at the other side of that, is how you actually deal with it, because those are big hits. We understand the importance of the emergency money, because if you didn't have that emergency money, things would be so much worse. But there is an element of how much can someone take when they just keep getting these hits. There are a few things to talk about, just some tactics and some strategies and some people that you can talk to, and also how you prepare for when this kind of thing might happen in the future. But we'll come back in just a second and talk about that. Okay, Canna, we're talking about resilience today, and it's linked to the topic of emergency money, and you just kind of told us about the 3 things that hit you one after the other. How do you deal with it? Because we've worked together for a while now, and you are a tough individual, but how does it hit you?
So I think we went through a wave of emotions. It was like the 8 stages of grief. Like, we were numb, then we were in just complete disbelief, then we were exhausted, deflated, just sad. Like, how has this happened? Like, how did we? You sort of look to yourself and you go through this soul searching almost, like, and then we were in different places where Tom was like angry and frustrated, and I was sad, and then I'd have to help like recalibrate each other.
Was there any blame kind of, say, for say Tom breaking the garage door? Or
No, no, not at all. Like it was kind of a laughter. Like and this is almost a part of the process. You almost go, you're so numb, you can't start laughing and going, now what? Now what's going to break? Come on, let's go find something. Like but the thing is, you've got to work together as a team.
Yeah.
You can't, the moment you start going, and yes, Tom did break the garage.
just to get that on the record, it was in fact Tom who did that, but we're not going to hold that against him.
And he will admit, he's like, I'm jinx things. He is not handy at all. He breaks, chips, cracks, damages, drops, loses everything. Like, so, but I'm going to waste my energy. We're already feeling bad and down and flat and upset. Me starting pointing at fingers is not going to help the situation at all. And it's life. Like accidents happen, things happen. Gosh, I was the one that had a baby without having proper private health insurance. So that's of no purpose or value whatsoever, blaming. So we went through this wave of emotions, and then there would be times where I was feeling a bit more positive about it and Tom was feeling angry and frustrated. And I'd have to be his cheerleader to prop him back up again, and then it would tip the other way. And the thing is talking about it, going, all right, like, it's okay to feel all those feelings, let them be and accept them. And it is what it is. Let the dust settle and then let them pass. And this is very healthy. You can't just like push it down like any emotion. You can't compress it because it will sometimes backfire. So the moment we let ourselves go through that process of just like frustration and sadness and the numbness even, we then started talking about it and going, all right, okay, this is what it is. So we looked at exactly the cost, got the finer details of the quote to really break it down and look at, okay, well, this is how much we're going to pay in these stages. This is how we'll do, we'll work through Giuseppe and the garage door and all the other things. So looking at actually strategies, but then also, and this is a really big one, is acknowledging the blessing. And this is where it was the big turning point for both of us. So, for example, for me, Giuseppe's 10 years old. The average life of a dog is a lot less than 10 years old. He's a happy, healthy dog. He's actually in great condition. And he is a dog that's helped me through so many challenging times in my life. So I'm lucky and blessed to have such a beautiful dog that loves me unconditionally and I love. So it kind of helps bring things back into perspective.
Yep.
The other thing is with the garage door, we're lucky that no one got hurt.
Yeah, that's a good point.
It's a very heavy door. If that came flying down with our kids around, it could have been an absolute tragedy.
Well,
so
considering there were three of you trying to lift it, it must be a heavy door. And that's a good way to look at it, actually.
And then the house. Number one, we're lucky to have a house.
Mm-hmm.
We are lucky to have our health. We're lucky to have friends. We're lucky to have emergency money.
Yeah.
And this is the big thing Tom said to me. He's like, thank goodness we have that money. Because if we didn't, we'd have to redraw off our home loan. We'd have to be borrowing from family or leaning on credit cards, and we'd be spiraling into debt. So it's like, thank goodness we actually have got this there. Even though we didn't, especially Tom's savings, he never thought he'd have to use it. Yeah. So starting to look at the blessings and put things back into perspective. And all you need to do is go watch the news, and you quickly get a wake-up call to go, really, my problems in the whole scheme of things are okay. And it's not going to be like this forever. We're not going to have a garage door breaking every day and, a house literally falling apart with water damage every day. This happens in a lifetime. It's okay. We can move on from this and we can come out the other side smarter, more resilient, and more, I guess, insightful.
What was part of the pain of it all then, just knowing that everything you had worked so hard for in terms of building up that emergency money was wiped out? That it's not just the fact that things kind of kept on coming, it's the fact that this work you have spent so long kind of trying to put this in place, and it didn't just wipe out a little bit of it. It wiped out all of it. And so you have to start all over again.
Yeah.
That would just be, it could so easily be very demoralizing.
And I think I felt really bad for Tom because that money he had in his own separate account is money that he had saved up before we'd even met. And he was saving up for something special, and that now has been delayed. So I feel really bad about that. But again, he's like, and he's great. He's like, no, thank God we've got that. That's the blessing of this. Like, you can't stay in a negative, depressed space because you're not going to move through it, and you're not going to start going to the next stage, which is coming up with the solutions and brainstorming and thinking outside of the square so that you can come up with, all right, how do we get back on our feet again? How do we rebuild that emergency money as quickly as possible?
Okay.
And that's where you really, like, Tom and I have a great relationship, and we're very different people. He's very wild. I'm quite quiet. And that's where we really come together and go, all right, okay, well, I could maybe do some extra work here. And Tom's like, well, I can do this as well. And I said, look, I could look at trying to really tone this expense down, and we can free up a little bit of money. And there is not one solution to rebuild our emergency money again. It's probably about 20 or 30 different things. And lots of little things are going to help us slowly and steadily get back on our feet again. And I really have to stress this to people. When you're on your financial journey and you're trying to build up savings or buy your first home or start investing or pay down debt, it's never a straight trajectory up. It's always going to be 2 steps forward, 1 step back, 2 steps forward, a quarter step back. That is life. That is life's rich tapestry, and that's the way it works. And to try and think it's only ever going to be positive and we'll get richer and richer, richer every day is naive and foolish, and you're setting yourself up for disappointment, because this is part of life.
So you're kind of looking at a bunch of different ways to rebuild that money. Some of them might be to kind of make a little bit more money, other odd jobs on the side, selling some things, kind of cutting back some expenses. You're really kind of working together to try and kind of come up with a plan. Exactly.
And really looking outside of the square, there's obviously all the traditional things, but what else can we do to explore that might actually help us come up with some extra money?
What about, though, when the hits keep coming? And I'm thinking as well of people who perhaps don't have the relationship that you and Tom have. Because that's kind of what Sian and I have, that when you kind of get these financial hits, you're like, you have someone else that you can kind of bounce off, and you feel like you're doing it together. And it does make it easier. It makes it a lot easier knowing that you've actually got someone that you're in the trenches with. Particularly, though, if you don't have that, it would be quite a lonely thing. And with those hits just coming one after the other, whether it is kind of a pet needing help or even just, say, the interest rate rises that have been hitting mortgages over the last year or so, where can people get help?
Look, there's actually lots and lots of different organizations and people out there to help you and hold your hand to get through those tough times. Look, there's the National Debt Helpline. There's the Centrelink crisis payment that a lot of people can access, particularly if they need emergency accommodation. CommBank even have this program called The Next Chapter, which is focused around financial abuse, and they offer free confidential counselling, like financial counselling, and it doesn't matter who you bank with.
Really?
And I believe Westpac also has a financially vulnerable program as well. A lot of the big brands and corporations that we come across every day, a lot of these companies are launching these like free confidential counselling support lines for people. And of course, like if you are in a financially vulnerable position, my advice is get on the phone and call your providers, particularly your utilities provider, and say, look, I'm in a position, this has happened. Can I have a payment plan, or can I have a delayed payment deadline? They are willing to work with you to find solutions.
Because they pretty much all have the kind of the infrastructure and the systems in place to help people. So your bank, if you look at the latest interest rate rise and just go, you know what, I don't know how I'm going to do this.
You've got to get on the phone, ask for help. It's so important. And the sooner you get on the phone and ask for help, the better. Don't delay it, because things can quickly and easily spiral and snowball out of control.
Because the assumption is that if you don't say anything, then you're okay.
Exactly.
You actually need to speak up. Okay.
And there's also the Department of Housing, there's financial counselling, there's Lifeline. Like there are hundreds of different organisations out there, and there are more and more popping up every single day. And, even if you're feeling nervous, ask a friend to come along with you to that appointment, or ask a friend to sit with you while you take the phone call, or ask a friend to sit with you and look at your budget. You might be a single person, but that doesn't mean you're alone.
Yeah.
When I was a financial planner, I had lots of clients that would call me and say, hey, do you just mind sitting down with me and working with me through this? Or I'm feeling particularly stressed and anxious about this. And I would sit there and help them for as long as they possibly needed. And a lot of the financial journey is about building up your own confidence, which you do by looking at your financial affairs, looking at how you can come up with solutions and strategies and what proactive measures you can put in place, like a budget, to help protect you going forward.
And the thing is that everyone has experienced this at some point. Everyone has kind of taken a hit financially. And so that if you talk to someone, chances are they will kind of understand what you're going through.
And have quite possibly been through it as well and have come out the other side, which is why it's a blessing I get to share this story with you. I'm hoping people are listening to just going, actually, Canna's got a point. We really do need emergency money and we can't sugarcoat or downplay how much we really need. Let's own it. Let's work out the real amount. And if we can't get to that amount immediately or as quick as we like, we can slowly and steadily chip away in it and build it up over time as we work through life.
All right. It's a big topic. It's an important topic. And it is about kind of making sure that you have that emergency money. Listen to that episode we did a few weeks ago, episode 17. I'm going to stick with it, saying it's episode 17. Go back and listen to that. Figure out how much you need in order to feel comfortable, to be able to kind of sleep well at night, knowing that you have that safety net in place. But then know that if something does happen and your emergency money gets wiped out, or an expense comes along that is more than you've actually been able to save up in that time, that there are other ways around it, that there are people you can talk to. Pick up the phone and talk to your provider, whether that be your bank or your electricity provider or your water provider or anything. Just pick up the phone and ask for help. See a financial planner as well, who is always able to kind of help in this kind of situation. Resilience is it is crucial, isn't it? It's a really important topic.
Absolutely. You need to accept it what it is, do your best, but never, ever give up. You will come out the other side.
Yeah, well said. All right. How do we find you?
The fastest and easiest place to connect with me is probably on Instagram through Sugar Mama TV and Canna Campbell Official. And of course, I've got my podcast, Sugar Mama's Fireplay.
Excellent. And you can hear me every day with Sean Aylmer on Fear and Greed, Australia's most popular business podcast. Thank you very much for listening to How Do They Afford That? Remember to hit follow on the podcast. That is very important. And please leave us a review. They're always great. A 5-star rating is always very much appreciated. Next week, we are getting into manifesting March. And
my favourite time of the year.
I know you are so excited about it, and I am so skeptical. So it is going to be a fantastic episode. Do not miss it.